What's up, guys? Blackstain Carpentry. Thanks for checking out my channel. I'm going to make a couple cutting boards here, show you every step, making two. I'm going to use Wenge, I'm going to use Jatoba, and maple. A little bit of foreign wood with some, more domestic. So I ripped this to my desired thickness, which was about 6¼ inches, so that then I could cut it in half and it would be 6½ inches. Once again, making two separate cutting boards, getting ready for the glue up. I always suspend my material up in the air with these sacrificial boards, grabbing my maple and Jatoba there. Here comes the Wenge, setting it up. I already laid it out the way I wanted the cutting board to look. Now I'm going to use Titebond 3, and why am I using Titebond 3? Most YouTubers will not tell you this. Titebond 3 is water resistant and non-toxic. Now, Titebond 3 is the only thing to use for anything that would be food safe, that you would need to be food safe. Now, a lot of people use Titebond 3 for every project they do. Well, it can be done, but why? It's the most expensive out of all of them. Now, we're only talking about pennies in difference of price, but Titebond 3 does not hold up in the heat, so do not put any cutting board or any salad bowl or whatever you make out of wood using Titebond 3, because it will, when it gets to about 89 degrees, the glue could fail. As you can see, I used way too much glue here, but once again, Titebond 3 has a 24-hour cure time, and it's got about a 4-hour open time, meaning it takes about 4 hours until the glue catches. Now, Quick and Thick, Titebond Quick and Thick, has a 5-hour. Quick and Thick, that's not too long. Actually, no, it is very long, because original Titebond has a 2-hour cure time, and it has a 20-minute open time, along with Titebond 2 with a 20-minute open time, but Titebond 2 has about an 8-hour cure time. So as you can see, this is why I always suspend my materials when I'm doing a glue up, just so that I have plenty of room to sneak a clamp underneath. I end up putting a clamp all over the place, and here's a little trick. If the boards are off a little bit, you squeeze a little clamp in there, ends up working out perfectly for you, getting that joint real nice and tight. So my brother, come and heckle me. He's also trying to watch the Cubs game on the TV in the back. I don't know if any of you guys have noticed that, but they're playing the Brewers. I believe they lost this game, unfortunately. So these gloves are the best gloves that I've found. They are double-lined gloves. I'll put a link in the description. They are magnificent. You can reuse them a couple times, unless they get sticky. I usually end up pitching them, but I think they're wonderful. I'll throw a link in the description. Ended up not having enough clamps, so I went and got a quick clamp from the back, and there's my final clamp up. I got a total of 9 clamps on there, and set that off to the side so that it cures. Here's my other cutting board. I decided I was just going to do it out of the Jatoba and the scrap of Wenge that I had from the leftover, because otherwise it was like 7⅛ inches, I believe, and I wasn't about it. So this makes for an easier glue up anyways. This cutting board, I wanted an end grain cutting board because I hadn't made one of those before. This is my first one, and I gotta say, spoiler alert, it came out beautifully. So once again, I accidentally put just a little too much glue on there, but made for an easy glue up because it was only 2 boards. Once again, suspending my material in the air, and I used every clamp that I had remaining that wasn't over 4 foot tall. Once I get all these clamps on here, I end up waiting overnight before I ended up declamping everything. Now, it was cold, that's why I was gluing everything up inside. I don't like leaving any of my material outside overnight when the temperatures or moisture could affect the straightness of the wood. So anyways, I end up measuring this because I'm going to end up cutting it in half, and then once again gluing it together so that the seam is there before I start sanding everything. quick trick that I do with all of these glue spots is I hit it with a little block plane to get the glue drips. Now some people use a rag immediately to get rid of them. I find this to be way easier. Even easier than a chisel. So here's, once again, I cut it in half. I cut it to my desired width of about 12.5 inches. I'm going to end up having this a 12-inch finish, so I wanted to have a little bit of room on each side so that I could go once again to the miter box and chop one line consistently through rather than trying to line up my joint perfectly so that I don't have, whatever. So that's the first one, and here's the second one. I have about the same thickness, about 12.5 inches on this. I ended up getting the pattern that I most desired so that the Jitoba would look like one thick piece of wood rather than two small ones. Had to run into the back to get another clamp over the middle, hitting that joint real good so that there's less sanding to do. And then here I cut it to my desired thickness for the end grain, and then I do the thing that's all over the internet, like Instagram or whatever. This is the first time I ever did this, and it turned out perfectly. It's that complete checkered board look. I thought it was going to be overlapping, but it ended up working out perfectly. I couldn't be more impressed with myself. Maybe it's just how it works. I'm not exactly sure. So here I am once I cut everything. I think I cut it to 7/8 thick. Yeah, probably 7/8 thick. And here I go with the glue. I ended up just taking the top off of it because I needed a heck of a lot of glue. And I don't know if that's enough. I think I ended up going back for more. I just used a piece of scrap wood to spread it all. I wanted gloves. I didn't grab them. Why? I don't know. I think I put them on later in the thing. So once I have all the glue spread out, now I end up just putting all of the pieces in the correct order for the end grain look that I was going for. Now, this was very difficult to clamp. I think I ended up having to clamp it together 2 separate times because it didn't do what I exactly wanted it to do, but I ended up putting a couple cauls on here. The way I kind of just approached this, not very smart. I'm trying to get rid of some of the glue so it's not a big mess, but here I go. I'm using these like cauls. I should have suspended this even higher than I did, but I go right away at it I just kind of snug it up a little bit so that everything can move. And I don't know, I think I end up fast forwarding through most of the struggle. Sorry, it was probably really funny, but it took like half an hour to glue up. And like I said, the open time of Titebond is only, it's about 4 hours, but it ended up, the glue stiffened up on me a little bit more than I wanted to. But yeah, I ended up using every clamp possible in order to get this. It worked out good. So after sanding for a while, I ended up deciding to use a router to flatten it, and I ended up gouging it in this one spot. So I ended up just transferring a line straight across because it was lower, and I didn't want to make everything lower, so I ended up filling with some epoxy. Here's some glaze coat epoxy. I ended up dyeing it black. I'll put a link in the description, the correct epoxy and tint that I used. Now I ended up having to do I underestimated the amount of epoxy I needed. I kind of just eyeballed it, so I ended up having to mix up just a little bit more, but it ended up working out pretty good because I dyed it black. If I dyed it gray or something, I might have ended up having 2 tones. I end up overfilling the groove slightly so that I can sand it back to the desired thickness rather than undersanding it. And see, there it is. I end up going with a torch, hitting it a little bit. As it's wet to pop any bubbles. There really weren't any bubbles, and you want to keep it away from the tape as much as possible. As you can see, it curled up. Now after I sanded everything, I bought this brand a little while ago on Gearhart. I'll put a link to that in the description. Here I branded the cutting board. This one ended up turning out way better. This is the Jitoba and Maple one. I sanded it back a little bit before I finished it. I had a few cutting boards to finish, so I ended up trying out the pool of mineral oil. It worked out all right. Had a wet rag. I ended up buying this Tupperware special so that it would fit everything, but then I could just keep reusing it for any future cutting boards that I made. So anyways, if you like this content, if you want some ideas or anything, just let me know. in the comments below. You don't have to like this video, but hit the subscribe to follow along the journey. I got a bunch of other videos on here, a couple table builds, tabletop builds. What else do I have on here? Oh, I built a guitar. That was pretty cool. I'm building another guitar that I'm going to start filming. Anyways, kind of wipe this dry a little bit. You do the bath so it really soaks in. It was end grain, that's why I wanted it. Here's the other one. I think this one turned out beautifully. It's Jatoba, Wenge, and Maple. I just think the look was remarkable, and you can see it really pops with the finish on there. If you have any suggestions on videos, or you think I did something wrong that you want to, yeah, throw a comment down. We'll have a discussion. Also, I think I have Etsy page with some stuff up that you could check out. I'm going to make a future video of how to upload to Etsy, what you want in your description of your product you're trying to sell and whatnot. But anyways, here's a couple photos of the finished product. Then once again, this is Mark Jones with Black Stain Carpentry. Thanks for watching.